All right. Welcome everyone to another UpCloud webinar. Today we will be talking about navigating digital transformation in regulated industries, leveraging data, AI, and secure cloud. I will introduce myself and my guest in a second, but let's just go through the agenda first. Um, so, um, as I mentioned, we will talk in a second about who we are and what we do. And after that, we will talk about evolving regulatory landscape, especially here in Europe, Oriola digital transformation journey and who Oriola is as well. And then the main topic for this webinar, data, AI, secure cloud, future trends, and Q&A. Feel free to write on the chat where you are tuning in from. I'm always curious to see who is watching us around the world. And while you do that, while people are jumping in, let's just talk a bit about a bit of housekeeping here. So your questions are more than welcome. The more you ask, the more relevant this webinar will be for you. So feel free to write down as you go, as we are speaking, so you don't forget, and I will tackle them at the end. So if I don't, ask the question right away, it's not because I'm ignoring you. It's because we're gonna ask at the end to our guest. Other things, I really hope you can stay until the end, but if you can't, no, don't you worry, you will get the recording of this session as well in the upcoming days. If you don't, feel free to ping me on LinkedIn and I'll make sure it will come to you. So yeah, while people are tuning in, let's introduce myself and my dear guest. My name is Mafalda. I work at UpCloud, the host of this webinar, and I work for the business development department. Currently living in Berlin, Portuguese, and yeah, love moderating these chats. So I'm super, super happy to have today Sampsa with me, Director of Digitalization, Data and AI at Oriola. Not only that, he has been working 25 years in service development, always tries to build products that people love, and he has a deep understanding of technology and business in general. So I will let him introduce himself, but these are the reasons why we are so excited to have him today. So thank you so much for being here today, Samsa.
Thank you, and thanks for inviting me. And I think that you already told the most, I think that important thing that the kind of in my past and during my years in the field, it's always been about kind of creating the businesses that hopefully the customers love, and thereby combining the business and the technology in a smart way to create something meaningful. So I think that exactly describes who I am and what I try to do, kind of going between business and the technology landscape and understanding the customer needs. So yeah, that's about it, what I do. But here at Oriola right now, responsible for our digital landscape, the touch points, data analytics, AI. But in the end, it's still about kind of putting the technology and maybe the physical world and the digital world together in a smart way.
Yeah, sounds great. And that's exactly what we talk about it in this webinar. And that's why we invited you as well. So I mentioned at the beginning that we like to have webinars that are a bit more interactive. So just to start with our interactions today, I would like to ask you to vote in this poll, so we can also understand why you were attending this webinar today. So please vote on what's the biggest challenge in implementing digital transformation within your industry. So we give you a couple of seconds to see what's the main choices here. So the answers are data sovereignty, security concerns, legacy systems, budget constraints, or some other. So let's see which one is the winner of today. All right, so data sovereignty and compliance, and then that's the first one. And then we have legacy systems and budget constraints. So amazing segue for the first question I have for you, Samsa, which is if you could give me an overview of the evolving regulatory landscape and also how that posed a challenge to Oriola. So let's start there.
Yeah, excellent question. Of course, maybe not all of these regulations here on the screen are not that relevant for us, but of course, when we come from we operate with pharmaceuticals, and which is a very regulated industry. I think that the whole GDPR AI Act, and especially on the right-hand side, the GXP and related regulations are like very, very demanding for us. And if I'm thinking how it's evolving over years, it's that, well, there isn't that many new maybe legislations that we need to act accordingly. But of course, the local authorities, both in Finland and in Sweden, over the years and almost every year, they come out with new kind of requirements towards us. So it's never ending story and always evolving some way or another. And depending on the country where we operate, it's always, of course, a little bit different. So I would say it's quite challenging, because now the regulators, when they do the legislative work, and for example in EU, a lot of legislation comes out every year. It's not really that they see it from the business perspective, but they just take the kind of maybe the patient safety, and then they think that, well, it would be the best to do it like this, and then there's a legislation, and we need to find the smart way how to implement that in our operations. So it makes it quite tricky.
And usually with tight deadlines as well, no?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, well, normally it's a year or something, but there are some legislation. I'm not going to into details, but there was this one thing that we needed to implement like in 2 months. So the authorities in Finland came out with the kind of what they want us to do, and then there it was, and then when are you going to deliver? So it was quite
Yeah.
we needed to act on that.
Yeah. Fantastic. I would love to learn more about Oriola and your digital transformation, and I'm sure you can talk about a bit the main milestones and how did you tackle just the challenges that you just mentioned now about legislation and regulation as well, and adapting on a go as well.
Yeah, definitely. So just a few words about Oriola. So we are not really a pharmaceutical company. We are a distribution company. Both in Finland and in Sweden, we are delivering roughly 50% of all the pharmaceuticals in both countries. So our end customers are the pharmacies, hospitals, vets, and that kind of customers, and then the upstream customers delivering the products into our warehouses, Pfizer, big pharma companies. So we operate in the middle, and we're part of the whole value chain. Like I said, both Finland and Sweden are our home markets. Yeah, we're doing a little bit of value-adding services in other countries too, but that's kind of where the heavy lifting happens. And as a business, this is quite low margin business, so it's a lot about efficiency and volume. So that links us to very tightly to data and measuring things, and then so being a profitable company, and even hopefully more profitable in future, since we are a publicly traded company. So that's in the core of what we do. But it's products coming in, you take those in, you manage those, and send them out in a smart way, and hopefully very quickly and efficiently. So that's what we do.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I think there was also another slide still from this. Yeah, the distribution is the core business, and there's also the wholesale, because not only pharmacies are our customers, but different kind of grocery chains, maybe Coop and ICA in Sweden, S Group and Kesko in Finland. So there's also the whole wholesale business that is growing quite rapidly. And then on the side, we have the advisory business, where, let's say, as a big pharma company, Sweden and Finland are quite small markets. So you don't necessarily have your own operations in these countries, and you want to come out with a new drug or something.
Yeah.
So you can call us, and we will help you out to facilitate all the work and be in contact with the regulators to get that drug out in the market. But that's kind of what we do. And then you start applying on top of that the digital aspect.
Yeah.
And in our case, I think it's quite a lot about maybe three things. I saw in the poll there was this budget constraints and the legacy systems. So maybe touching that a little bit, the governing of the whole journey. We have to have some kind of northern star where we're going and then taking steps towards that. But to govern the whole thing, it's right things at right time with right speed. Because when this kind of operations you want to do the transformation and change something, it normally touches all the aspects of the business. So it's not really that you tweak a little bit here and a little bit there. It's about making the change throughout the full company. Maybe it's the processes, it's the systems, maybe it's the customer interactions. So you need to get the whole company to work with right speed towards the same goal to make the change. So I think it's the governing the whole journey, that's the most important one. Then the second, I would say, and this has been a very painful for us and still is, that small things over large things, meaning that as a little bit larger company and with bigger operations, you tend to create all kind of projects to manage the change, but it's not really efficient. And in our case, we've been trying to have more of this kind of thinking that this is where we want to go, and then gradually but iteratively making the small changes all the time. So quite agile approach, I would say. And maybe third, in our digital journey, for someone, the digital journey or digitalization might mean that it's all about maybe some kind of web app or I don't know, phone app, its user interface, something like that. But for us, it's quite a lot about the core systems. So you have to have very solid foundation. Well, we are an SAP company and Microsoft company, so that kind of creates the foundation. But especially with the SAP, you really have to have that built in a right way, supporting your business and your processes to deliver kind of the digital impact. So it's the foundation. It has to be right. So I would say that those are the kind of the elements that are very important in our.
Yeah, I think in general, foundation is a key thing in any business and any department, and sometimes is overlooked, right? It's not uncommon when people start building the house starting from the roof. So I think it's a very important point that you mentioned that in like in today's webinar. Speaking about AI and automation, I know Oriola is leveraging it. You mentioned that as well. What are the benefits that you've seen so far, which tangible ones?
Yeah, I would say that if we take the automation part, and that we see it as two things. Of course, it's the physical automation that's happening in our warehouses, and we are quite far with that. We have three distribution centers that we operate, and the automation is the key. So the benefits, of course, come. I'll give you an example. If you increase the speed of the belt that moves the boxes around, if you increase it even slightly, that can bring tremendous benefits. But at the same time, you have to fully understand what's happening in the warehouse, so you can do that. So I think that's one thing. The automation, it increases a lot of the efficiency in the warehouse. But then maybe another angle is the software automation, for example, RPA, and especially when you have a lot of systems, you don't always want to connect those systems together. So to have something on top of that, maybe the RPA, or we use in our company the technology called UiPath to automate different kind of processes. So that's what we do quite a lot. But then on AI side, well, that's tricky. We do actually quite a lot, but it's super hard. Because let's say everybody's talking about generative AI, and maybe it's the ChatGPT Copilot.
It's a buzzword, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a buzz, and we also have those tools in use, but to really find the proper use cases, and don't get me wrong, I think that if you apply it into your work as an individual or in a team, yeah, that creates some kind of efficiency and time gains and that kind of things. But going beyond that, it's super hard. So
Yeah.
we have
Yeah.
few really good examples, but we've grinded through several POCs and did a lot of work to find even one very good use case. So
Yeah.
it's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Also because AI, and I think a lot of people don't see that way, is another kind of tool, right? So you
It
need
is. It is.
assessment,
Yeah.
right? So you need to assess which problem are you trying to solve, what's the way, which kind of AI, because AI is super broad, what do you mean
Yeah.
by AI? And
Yeah.
which AI tool are you looking for? And then
Yeah.
is this the right one? And then you need to
Yeah.
implement, onboard the tool, do the whole thing. So it's not just like, let's put AI into processes and
Yeah,
just
and
see
I
if
think
it works.
that's where we fail normally. And what I try to stress in our company is that don't talk about AI or any technology. Talk about the problem we are trying to solve, and let's
Precisely.
solve the problem. It might be pen and paper if it makes sense, but let's talk about the problem, and then we can come maybe we find a technological thing that we can apply to that problem. But that
Yeah.
should never be the kind of the first step. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah,
hard in
exactly.
the end. Yeah.
Foundation again. Let's start
Again,
with
it's
the
the foundation.
we're going over and over to the first thing we talked about, which is foundation. So which problem are you trying to solve? Is this foundation solid? If yes, then we can start building from that. And if not, we need
Exactly.
to take
Exactly.
care of that first.
Yeah.
Is still speaking about AI, besides AI is the next shiny thing that everyone wants to implement because it also looks good on the yearly reports. But
Yeah.
which steps should organizations take to ensure that AI-driven decisions are transparent, compliant, and make sense to the organization?
Well, at least in our case, and then I can specifically talk about our advisory service. We have a lot of information in text format there, and we do a lot of reporting for our customers. So we use it very heavily there. But I think there are a few things that you need to take into account. First of all, of course, it's if something goes wrong, it's never the AI's fault. It's the users or the business's fault. So if we send
Yeah.
out some material, so it's always people in the or person in the middle, and it should be at least to some extent checking that. But maybe the other thing that we've been doing is that we built certain agents to carry out tasks, and for example, build different reports for our customers. But we have also built these other agents that we then AI agents that then take as an input that document and tries to kind of find problems from there. So we do it like with AI with two kind of agents, but also there's always the person in the end checking the results. And in our case specifically, they have to be like really professionals. So we have pharmacists, we have doctors, we have all kind of people working, and they are professionals in that area, so they can really read the output and still confirm that everything is like it should be.
Yeah.
And maybe as a third example, we use quite a lot reasoning. So the agents, for example, when we create some outputs, let's say it's a document, we still make the AI to explain how it came to that conclusion. And then we use these other agents to confirm those conclusions. So it's a combination of technology, but still person in the end
Yeah,
taking
because you
responsibility.
need also scrutiny, right? You cannot
Yes,
just
yes,
trust AI blindly. So it makes sense
yeah, yeah,
that
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
that you actually check that and use human beings for that.
Yeah, but I have to say that,
Um,
but it's hard. It's hard. It's not easy. It takes a lot of iterations to find the kind of the golden egg and what to do with these
Yeah,
tools.
yeah. And you also need, because AI is still, I wouldn't say it's a recent thing because
Mm,
it started developed since, Alan Turing from Second World War, but it's not a
yeah,
new thing, but it's it's being used in a more, let's say, general way for everyone, and so it's still a new thing for a lot of people. So it's also not easy to find the right human resources that are trained enough and
yeah,
skilled
yeah,
enough to actually do that work in a seamless way, I would assume.
yeah. And if you see the whole AI landscape, and exactly like you said, it's been around like ages. The only difference how it really is that because of the generative AI. It's a new kind of cool, shiny tool that you can
Yeah.
apply. But all these other elements of AI, they've been kind of tens and tens of years already.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And when you look at the whole landscape, I actually believe that the still the big winnings for a company like us are in the kind of this traditional AI. It's super risky and it takes a lot of money to develop, but still your own model, specific your business, that's where you can really get the gains, the big gains. This is just something small happening on the side, how I see it from our
Yeah.
company perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on to from AI to cloud. I would like to talk about key components of data strategy. So my question to you is, in pharmaceutical logistics, what are the key components of a strong data strategy, and how do you ensure compliance while handling massive data sets?
Yeah. So I this is what when someone asks this, I always tell the same thing. There are two key elements, like two major elements, that it starts with the data governance and who's owning the data and how you ensure the data is good quality.
Yeah.
Those are the two key elements. And you always have to have those in place because now, for example, in our transformation and where we're putting this foundation right now and we're in the middle of that, that's one of the key elements that we're focusing on. Who owns the data, who can manage the data, how you put it in the systems, how you get it out, how the processes create new data points, and how do we ensure that it's good quality, it's accurate, it's unique. All those elements need to be there because that's then the thing that you feed to the AI machine or our data and analytics reporting. So
Yeah.
that's a key thing. And the ownership, because what happened in the past in our company at least, and I've seen this in many places, is that if no one is really owning some data domain, let's say you have customer information or product information, and then you change something, you don't really know what the impact is going to be in other systems and in our supply chain and all that. So ownership and then the quality and governing the data. I think those are the most important things. Everything else comes after that, but those are the key elements that you should be really focusing on.
They're the must-haves, right? So
Definitely. Yes, yes.
it
And I'm not even now talking into kind of the data platforms and how you technologically do this, but on a little bit higher level, this is what you need. There has to be somebody looking into this whole area, the governance area, to make it right.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Um, any practical tips on that regard, for someone listening to that?
Yeah, well, maybe the biggest is that, for example, when building any kind of data governance, well, first of all, it's never ready. The
Yeah.
second is that it will take a lot of time to make it right and efficient. And thirdly, implementing that even specifically in a little bit larger corporation, it takes a lot of time. So you have to be patient, just take small steps at a time, and maybe in a year and a half, you're in a good position. But it's really hard. And it's not because of the technology, but because of people. We are really talking about people here, changing the behavior of people. So managing that change,
Yeah.
that's the tricky part. Technology is easy, people are hard.
We are way more complex, right?
Yeah,
So
definitely. Yeah.
yeah, which is a good thing as well when people are afraid. I mean, I understand some concerns that AI will replace us, and then I don't disagree that there are certain jobs that will be replaced, but
Mm-hmm.
replace us as human beings completely, I see it quite hard because we are
Yeah,
very
yeah.
complex.
Yeah. I think there was a second part to your question, but I already forgot it. What was that?
How do you ensure handling massive data sets? That was the second.
Yeah. Well, I think it still comes down to the ownership somehow because now the data, it gets created somewhere or or you take it from outside the company, but somehow that data comes into your company.
Yeah.
So the ownership and through that you can then start discussing, well, what can we do with the data? What is allowed? What is not? Well, if you take these two data points and put them together, does it create something that creates risks for us? So again, I think I would say it comes through the ownership. So understanding the legislation quite deeply and then applying that as through the data governance to what you do with the data. So I think those are the really important things. And maybe in our case, like I said, we as a distribution company, a lot of the information and data gets created in our processes. So you need to understand that it doesn't just magically appear, that data. It gets created in the warehouse. There's a person doing something, maybe scanning a product, maybe moving it from one place to another. That creates a data point. So you have to understand how the processes and data are connected. So I think that's really important, because in the end, there's some kind of legislator asking us something. Well, how can we deliver that if that data point is not being created in our processes? So I think that's quite important to understand.
Yeah, fantastic. Looking into the future, what are other emerging technologies that you believe will be or will have the biggest impact in healthcare and healthcare logistics beyond AI?
Yeah, well, I think it's quite obvious in our case, and there are technology already existing, and specifically now let's remember our company is a lot about the walls, the warehouse, and what happens inside that. So it's a lot about IoT, it's about digital twin. To make the operation super efficient, it would make sense to have a really good digital twin that we can use to, for example, simulate the changes that would happen in the warehouse. At the same time, through IoT devices, it would make a lot of sense to feed in a lot of information to that model. So we could really have a kind of the digital copy of our warehouse and understand how everything works there. But it's, again, very hard and takes a lot of time to make it right. And all these require a lot of investments. So it's not just a million here, a million there. I think it's, in our case, it's tens of millions to make this not even perfect, but to make it somewhat
doable.
Yeah. And then maybe other thing is that this is not really technology, but what's impacting us and maybe all the listeners here too, is the ESG reporting and what comes with that. So again, the regulators come with all these needs, and the ESG reporting requires us to do certain things. And again, that requires a lot of data points. So how to do this in a smart way so it's not so kind of labor heavy. And maybe third, the robotics part. So quite a lot of happening in this. But again, it's about investments to physical things, and that's super expensive normally.
Yeah, for sure. Before we go to the Q&A, we already have a couple of questions. Let's do a final poll, everyone. So we talked about, digital transformation, AI, logistics. Has your understanding of data, AI, and secure cloud's role in your digital transformation strategy evolved? So I'll give you a couple of seconds to see the answers here, and then we will go to the Q&A. Also, feel free after voting, if you have some questions to Sampsa, just write on the Q&A or on the chat, and I'll be moderating them as well. So let's see which answer will our audience give. So, and then we can also talk a bit about the answers as well while people are writing some questions on the Q&A. So we should be kind of ready for now. So let's see. All right, most people chose we need to improve our data utilization, followed by we need to invest more in AI readiness. Samsa, any comments or any advice to these points?
Yeah, the data utilization, also a hot topic in our company, and it pretty much comes down to the question like where is the data so it can be consumed? That's first thing. And how to make it available and visible to the business and everyone in the company that these are the data points that we have, and maybe even give an examples of what you can do from those. So I think that I've seen several cases where people are amazed that, oh, we have this kind of data and that kind of data, and then they kind of start understanding, hey, I could do this, I could do that. But to make it visible, and of course there are a lot of data cataloging tools and that kind of things that you can apply to your business and take into use. But even those are quite, I would say that they are not that user friendly, and they are
Yeah.
still for tech people more. And let's say still it's the business side who wants to consume in a right way the data. So I think it's quite a lot about how to bring right kind of people, business savvy people with the technological aspect, and putting them into the business and give them the access to the data. And then that's, I think, that one of the key enablers that will unlock this, how
Yeah.
to use the data properly.
Yeah. And I think this is a great bridge to one of the questions on the Q&A, which is AI is certainly useful, but how can I handle pushback from leadership regarding its use and pitch its use appropriately?
That's a good question. So if you mean like there's a kind of the legislature somehow blocking it, or how to use kind of how to follow the legislation, or what was it like?
I would say here it's more pushback from leadership, from what I understand.
Oh yeah, like that. Yeah. Well, I think it's only through use cases, and you need to show the benefits. And I think that's the tricky part. So let's say if you're able to show and hey, let's put it this way, business and the leadership, they are always about return of investment,
Yeah.
show the value, show in numbers, and specifically when it comes to, let's say, generative AI personal, let's say Copilot, ChatGPT, it's very hard to show in numbers that what kind of value it creates. So it's a lot about trust. So how to overcome that and build your business case so that it really shows that, yeah, there's benefit, there's value. Maybe it's higher revenue, or maybe it's the kind of efficiency gains, but overcoming that's still, even with AI, you unlock. I think it's the same thing that back in the days you had other technologies, so you still needed to show the numbers. This is a
Yeah.
business we're trying to build here.
I agree with you. Like it's the same when you try to convince leadership of adopting a new tool or something. You always have to have a business case for it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
I
it
give you
again is
one
very
example what we
similar.
did in the company. It was that uh, we did a project. We built three different AI POCs, and we spent, let's say, it took something like 6 months. So we spent 4 months focusing on what use cases we should solve, and we picked such use cases that we were definitely certain that we can do it, and it will deliver value, because we wanted to showcase that, yeah, we can do it, and there's real value in AI and generative AI. So not just to take any kind of use cases and try to do it, you have to pick the right ones and show the value, and then it's a lot more easier with the business.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. Have another interesting question here. Taking the current geopolitical situation, what effects might this have in the immediate future for both healthcare logistics and data security in general?
Yeah, well, I think that we all know the kind of the data security issues, and there's a lot happening by different groups and even nation states in that area. So I think that's quite obvious. But this the impact on the supply chain of, for example, pharmaceuticals, it can be very massive, because like many industries, the pharmaceutical industry is very connected, highly connected. A lot of the products are actually
Yeah,
produced, for example, in India or in China, uh, like these generic drugs. So that's the kind of the hotspot for those. So whatever happens in those areas or neighboring countries, it always has some kind of impact on the supply chain. And who's going to suffer from that? It's the patient. So what we already see now, and since, for example, some of the incidents in Europe, or maybe even wars happening there, so they get disrupted, these supply chains, and it has an immediate impact on different markets. And Finland and Sweden, for example, being a little bit smaller markets, we are kind of the last one to get certain kind of drugs because big amount is being distributed in Europe and maybe US.
Coming from Portugal, I understand.
Yeah, so it's a what we see is that there are these supply chain issues right now. They are not that big yet, but everything that's happening in the Europe and the geopolitically, it has an impact on the supply chain.
Yeah. Last question. While a digital transformation is in progress, what is the best strategy to gradually consolidate/integrate legacy systems so that all the IT systems are used in a cost-efficient way?
That's a hard one.
It's a really $1 billion question.
Yeah, it is. It is. In our case, I would say that what we try to do, of course, we are trying to, and this is an expensive way to do it, but still, I believe the right one, that we are, with one go, we are replacing the whole backend, the whole old foundation, and replacing it with something new. So that's the kind of what one can do, but it's quite painful to do it, and it takes a lot of time and cost. The other thing I would say is that what normally happens is that it's fine to have legacy systems, but you need to have a very strong enterprise architecture in place and roadmap, and diligently following, replacing one by one the systems. I would say that most of the companies, what they tend to do is that they build this spider web where all the systems are interconnected, and that creates confusion. So I would say that take the time and start thinking how to one by one replacing the systems. No one wants to do it because, again, it's really hard, but that's the only way to get out of it. The second option is to just replace everything with the one go, but that's probably even harder. So after that.
Yeah. All right, I think this is the end of our webinar. Thank you so much, Sampsa, for accepting our invitation, for being such a great guest and answering all of the hard questions from the audience as well. For those who are tuning in, you'll get the recording. Feel free to follow UpCloud on social media, on LinkedIn, and because we will have very similar webinars throughout the year. So this is a great way to get informed about them. And also feel free to connect with me and Sampsa. And if there are any more questions, don't be a stranger, just reach out to us and feel free to ask us. So thank you so much, Sampsa, for today.
Thanks for inviting me.
Bye-bye.